Do you really think they feel your pain when they see you cry? No. A lot of the time, every emotional confession just hands your weak spot to the exact person who should never have access to it. If you want your life back in your own hands, you have to see the brutal truth hiding behind fake empathy. Have you ever stood in front of a mirror, stared into your own exhausted eyes, and wondered why the deepest wounds in your life always came from the people you once trusted the most? You opened up. You exposed the darkest corners of yourself, your private fears, your hidden shame, the dreams you built with sweat, sacrifice, and sleepless nights. And you gave all of that away just to receive what looked like comfort, just to get one soft voice, one nod, one fake hug that made you think, finally, someone understands. But what you did not see was this. The moment that tear rolled down your face, you also exposed yourself to eyes that were quietly measuring you, memorizing you, and waiting for their moment. That is the truth most people do not want to hear. Every complaint, every vulnerable story, every secret whispered into the wrong ear. A lot of the time, it is not building intimacy. It is building a weapon. A weapon that can come back and cut you open when you least expect it. Welcome to the harsh reality of a world that does not reward unconditional emotional exposure. Miss Hong-an warmly welcomes you. And if these words just touched a wound that still has not healed, if you are tired of becoming a victim of your own innocence, then this video is for you. Subscribe now and support Miss Hong-an so this channel can keep bringing you hard truths, shatter dangerous illusions, and help you see life with clearer eyes. Because we have lived under one beautiful lie for far too long. For years, the crowd out there, along with shallow pop psychology, has lulled people to sleep with phrases that sound comforting. Be vulnerable, show your weakness, express everything. Let it out and you will feel lighter. They made you believe the world is one giant therapy room, a place where everybody is waiting with warm hands and clean tissues, ready to care about your pain. Wake up. This world has never been a hospital of compassion. It is a battlefield, a calculated one, and on that battlefield, your weakness does not always attract protection. Sometimes it attracts predators. Maybe you have learned this the hard way. Maybe I have too. Maybe both of us were naive enough to think honesty automatically creates honesty. Maybe we really believed that if we put our scarred hearts on the table, people would treat them gently. But life answered that illusion with very real blows. The person who comforted you yesterday when you talked about your anxiety at work might be the same person using that insecurity to get ahead of you tomorrow. The one who sat there listening while you broke down might be the same one retelling your pain as entertainment behind your back. The price of being easy to read is never cheap. You pay for it with dignity, with leverage, with personal power, and with wounds that take a very long time to heal. I am not here to stroke your broken ego. I am not here to pat your head and tell you everything will be okay. No, this is cold water to the face. It is time to bury the version of you that keeps surviving by over-explaining, oversharing, and hoping to be understood by people who were never worthy of that access in the first place. It is time to put on the armor of stoicism and sharpen your mind with the realism of Machiavelli. It is time to learn the power of silence, because silence is not emptiness. Silence is control. And if you want your life back, you need to see what fake empathy really is. Because once you see it clearly, you stop begging for comfort from people who only value information. And that changes everything. Here is a truth that sounds cold because it is cold. Human beings are wired to protect their own interests first. That does not mean everyone is evil. It means self-interest is real. And if you ignore that, you make yourself easy to play. When you expose emotional pain, you expect the other person to step into your world and feel what you feel. But look closer. Behind the concerned expression, behind the sigh, behind the soft tone, there is often something else hiding underneath. Something subtle, something uncomfortable. Sometimes people feel relief when they see you struggling. Sometimes your pain makes them feel safer about their own lives. Sometimes your breakdown becomes a quiet, emotional sedative for their insecurity. That is ugly, but it is real. When you tell someone you were betrayed, humiliated, rejected, or financially desperate, you are not just sharing a story, you are handing them a form of power. The power to pity you, and pity almost never walks side by side with respect. Let that sink in. A lot of people are not listening because they truly care. They are listening because they are curious, because they want access, because they are collecting emotional data, and in many cases, because they want a story they can later retell at another table, in another room, with another smile. Machiavelli made this painfully clear. People can be fickle, performative, and driven by advantage. The hand reaching down to help you today can be the same hand pushing you tomorrow if that move benefits them. Does that make them monsters? Not always. A lot of the time, it just means you misunderstood the game. The world runs on interests, far more than it runs on beautiful feelings. And that is exactly where many good people get it wrong. They think emotional honesty is always noble. They think transparency always builds trust. They think if they explain enough, if they reveal enough, if they suffer openly enough, the right people will show compassion. Sometimes that happens, but many times what really happens is this. The other person now knows where you are fragile. They may not use it immediately. They may even look supportive for a while, but they remember. And when tension rises, competition appears, or loyalty fades, that weak point suddenly becomes the exact place they hit. Human nature is deeper and darker than most people are willing to admit. Expecting someone to fully understand your inner pain and then live honorably in protection of it is, many times, a losing gamble. And the person who usually loses most is the one who shared too much. So stop romanticizing openness with the wrong people. Stop assuming access equals closeness. Stop confusing attention with care. Some people do not want to save you. They want to study you. Some people do not lean in because they feel for you. They lean in because they smell information. That is why emotional discipline matters. That is why boundaries matter. That is why silence matters. If you have ever realized you trusted the wrong person too deeply, comment 1. Because once you finally see the selfish layer inside human behavior, the path forward is no longer screaming about how unfair everything is. The path forward is learning the art of stillness. And once you stop feeding the world your pain, you become much harder to control. Stoicism teaches a truth that changes your entire posture in life. Real power does not come from controlling the outside world. It comes from mastering the world inside you. Silence is not weakness. Silence is not fear. Silence is not passive surrender. Used correctly, silence is force. The moment you stop explaining yourself, stop complaining, stop trying to prove how hurt you are, you become harder to read. And that is exactly what manipulative people hate. They are not afraid of loud anger. They are not afraid of emotional explosions. They are not afraid of dramatic words. What they fear is a person who gives them nothing to work with. A person who watches. A person who feels deeply but does not spill those feelings into the hands of the unworthy. A person who refuses to hand over emotional ammunition. That kind of person is hard to manipulate, because no information means less leverage. No visible emotional leak means fewer places to attack. Picture your mind as a fortress. People can stand outside it and talk. They can judge. They can gossip. They can twist your story. But they cannot enter unless you open the gate. That is what oversharing really is. It is not bravery. It is often self-disarmament. It is you lowering the drawbridge for people who have not earned the right to enter. From now on, protect the deepest parts of you. Keep your pain in a place where it can actually heal, not in the public square where it becomes emotional spectacle. A person who is no longer addicted to being understood becomes very powerful. Because they are no longer ruled by outside validation, they do not need pity. They do not need the crowd to confirm that they were wronged before they allow themselves to stand back up. They become internally anchored, and that changes the energy they carry. Silence creates gravity. Silence creates mystery. Silence creates self-respect. Do not sell the tear-soaked chapters of your life to people who have done nothing to deserve them. Your sorrow is not public property. Your wounds are not group entertainment. Not everybody deserves the backstage pass to your inner life. And once you understand that, your speech changes. You become more selective, more intentional, less available. You stop speaking just to relieve emotional pressure. You start observing. You start filtering. You start asking a different question. Who has actually earned access to this part of me? That question alone can save you years of damage. Because every time you overshare with the wrong person, you teach them how to get under your skin. You teach them which words will shake you, which fears still haunt you, which insecurities still own you. And the people who play psychological games know exactly what to do with that information. So build the wall, not to become cold, not to become cruel, but to become sovereign. Silence is not emotional death. It is emotional discipline. It is the shield that sends the arrows back where they came from. And only after you build that fortress can you step inside and begin doing the private work that real healing requires. Accepting silence also means accepting another truth most people try to avoid. Real healing is lonely. No one is coming to save you. There is no perfect rescuer, no flawless friend, no magical figure arriving at exactly the right time to gather all the broken pieces of your soul and put them back together for you. At the end of the day, it is still you. You and your shadow. You and the quiet. You and those long nights when everything inside you feels raw. That is where the real work begins. You have to look at the wound yourself. Name the pain yourself. Strip away the lies yourself. Cut out what has already gone rotten inside you. Does that hurt? Of course it hurts. It hurts badly, but that is the price of real maturity. Instead of running around begging for painkillers in the form of empty reassurance, learn to digest hardship, chew through betrayal, swallow injustice, process humiliation, burn through those bitter tears until they stop owning you. Turn all of it into an internal furnace, a place where weakness gets melted down and recast into stronger will. Pain is a brutal teacher, but it is fair. It does not crush your naive identity just to destroy you. It crushes it because that version of you cannot go where your life is trying to take you. Pain forces rebirth, and in that season of isolation, you begin to discover something deeply freeing. You are far stronger than you thought. When you survive those suffocating nights without calling half the world to announce how broken you feel, something shifts. You step into a different level of adulthood. Dependency starts to crack. Your need for emotional witnesses starts to loosen. You no longer need someone else to validate your pain before you allow yourself to rise. You become your own witness, your own stabilizer, your own rescue. And that is where real dignity starts returning. You begin giving birth to yourself again. Out of the ashes of your old naivety, another version of you starts to emerge. Harder, clearer, less delusional, more grounded. The scars inside you are no longer something you drag around hoping other people will pity. They become proof. Proof that you went through hell and came back with your mind intact. Proof that what tried to break you failed. Proof that your softness no longer makes you easy prey. This is where people transform. Not when life is easy. Not when everybody cheers for them. Not when they are wrapped in warmth. People transform when they sit in the fire long enough to stop fearing it. That is why solitude matters. Not because isolation is glamorous, but because without solitude, you never really meet yourself. You only meet your performance. When the room is quiet and there is no one left to impress, comfort, blame, or convince, you finally confront the truth. You see what still controls you. You see what still hurts. You see what still makes you desperate to be chosen, understood, or emotionally rescued. And then you can begin cutting those cords. If today you decide to stop living as a hostage to your old pain, comment 1. Because once loneliness has burned away your illusions and forged you into a calmer, stronger person, you do not return to the world the same way. You return with a different presence, a different standard, a different kind of power. When you return to the world, you do not need to become bitter. You do not need to turn into a cynical, hostile person. Stoicism and realism do not mean losing your humanity. You can still smile. You can still shake hands. You can still cooperate, work, connect, and move through society like a functional, gracious adult. But this time, you enter with a different code, a code built on steel boundaries. You can stay open on the surface, but internally, you become a fortress with controlled access. You understand fake smiles, but you do not feel the need to expose them. You recognize petty agendas, but you do not waste energy reacting to every one of them. You see more, but you perform less. You have now touched a very rare kind of freedom. Freedom from expecting people to be kind. Freedom from needing to be understood. Freedom from hanging your emotional state on other people's reactions. That freedom is power. If someone turns on you, you do not collapse. You remove them. If someone crosses a line, you do not beg, argue, or explain for hours. You pull back access. If someone tries to use old information to control you, they run into something deeply frustrating. The old version of you is gone. They came looking for the person who used to react, panic, confess, over-explain, and bleed in public. That person is not there anymore. Now they are dealing with someone calmer, someone clearer, someone harder to mess with. You no longer stay up at night wondering why people treated you badly, because now you understand the game. And once you understand the game, you stop taking every betrayal personally. You stop acting shocked that self-interest exists. You stop handing emotional power to anybody who shows a little attention. You rise not to get revenge. You rise to stand at a level where low arrows no longer reach you. You are no longer a teary-eyed target waiting for somebody to spare you. Now you are the observer, the one who sets the tone, the one who holds the keys to their own peace. And that is the shift that changes everything. Your path ahead will still be long. The world will still test people who are soft, dreamy, unguarded, and boundaryless. It will still try to consume the naive. That will not change. But something else can change. You, the person standing here, after hearing these words, does not need to remain a victim of yesterday for 1 second longer. Lift your head. Close your mouth when silence serves you better than explanation. Walk with the quiet authority of someone who finally sees. Because the moment you stop begging the world to treat your heart gently and start protecting it with wisdom, your real life begins. Transformation never begins on a road covered in flowers and sweet reassurance. It begins the moment you are willing to look directly at the darker side of people, the side where empathy is sometimes just a beautiful mask for private motives. And from that point on, you are forced to learn a difficult but priceless lesson. Instead of becoming a wounded victim waiting for sympathy, you build the strength of silence. Silence to protect your mind. Silence to stop handing weapons to opportunists. Silence to bury the naive weakness that kept costing you peace, dignity, and power. Then, in the deepest part of solitude, when there is no one left but you begin the most important work of all. You face yourself. You cut away what has already died inside. You rebuild. You become steadier, sharper, calmer, and much harder to shake. And after that process, you do not go back into the world as the same person. You return with steel boundaries. You still live. You still connect. You still function. But you are no longer innocent in the dangerous way. You no longer build your life around the fantasy that other people must understand you to treat you well. You no longer hang your happiness on their reactions. What broke you did not bury you. It became the hard but necessary platform from which you reclaimed your own life. That is when you begin walking with the peace of someone who has finally woken up. So what is the core lesson here? The greatest power in life is not the power to change the hearts of other people. It is the power to protect and heal your own mind in the face of the world. The moment you stop turning pain into a public cry for rescue and start learning how to master it in silence, that is the moment you stop living like a victim. Now, how do you apply this in real life? Start with the 4-8-hour silence rule. Whenever something painful happens, betrayal, humiliation, conflict, rejection, do not tell the world immediately. Do not rush to post cryptic messages. Do not text 5 people. Do not turn fresh pain into content. Give yourself the first 48 hours in silence. That gives the emotional storm time to pass its peak. That gives your mind time to cool down. That gives you space to see what happened with more clarity and less emotional leakage. Next, clean up your sharing circle. Stop making your private pain available for public consumption. Learn to distinguish between people who are truly capable of holding your truth and people who are just an audience. That difference matters more than most people realize. And finally, build steel boundaries. Communicate with grace, but maintain the inner distance necessary to stay free. And when someone disrespects you, exploits your weakness, or keeps crossing lines, remove their access clearly. No long speech, no dramatic explanation, no emotional performance. Just clarity. That is strength. If you are ready to step into a sharper, calmer version of yourself starting today, comment 1. Have you ever regretted sharing your pain or your weakness with the wrong person? Leave your perspective and your experience in the comments below so others can reflect on it too. And if this message gave you something real, subscribe to the channel and support us so we can keep creating deeper, sharper content that helps people wake up, grow stronger, and take their power back. Because the world does not always reward the most open heart, but it does respect the person who learns when to speak, when to stay silent, and how to protect what is sacred inside. And that person can never be controlled the same way again.